HP wants you to rent a printer. Is that a good idea? This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Take Control Books, one of the very best sources of clear, concise information on not only Apple's various operating systems, but also key Apple and third-party utilities and more. Visit TakeControlBooks.com and start your library today. Speaking of that, and we're back to, this feels related to, and I'm putting this in the chat room as well. This is an Ars Technica story. I lost one of the chat rooms. Where did it go? There it is. No, I did lose one of the chat rooms. There we go. HP wants you to pay up to 36 months to rent a printer that it monitors.
Or you could just, HP wants you to pay monthly for a printer, full stop.
Well, but the thing is, Jim, the way this reads, they have the potential to monitor what you're printing.
Well, yeah, that makes it even worse. But
well, yeah, I mean, that's.
And you have to agree to let them sell all your information to other advertisers too.
I start to wonder how anybody ever did business. How did anybody make any money or do business or stay in business before we had all this tracking? You know what? It kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So it's like the Facebook of printers. HP has become sort of that place that's going to sell. Yeah,
but the thing is, at least Facebook gives you, the ability to see your cousin's posts or something. I mean,
yeah,
HP is giving you nothing that you couldn't get somewhere else. To me, the really puzzling part of this story is presumably there will be people that take them up on this offer. I mean, you would hope that number would be zero, but presumably it's not going to be zero.
Yeah.
I want to be fair about this because in the last office I worked in, we had a big copier that, and I say big copier, one of the big ones, with the sorters and the scanning and all of that. And honestly, it never really occurred to me, and you could email from it, scan something and have it email from the copier. It never occurred to me at the time that, okay, that means this thing is on the internet and the copier people, forget anybody intercepting anything sent out, but the copier people could potentially have complete access to this. And
your copier won't copy money, so that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right, that part. But, it may be confidential information that I'm copying. Maybe it's a document or an agreement between you and me, Jim, that you're going to sell me your car that, for some price or something crazy. Or I might be becoming another shareholder in Eric's Apple Vision Pro. So the other thing, though, about this is that they are very strict about this printer has to remain connected to the internet. If it's disconnected from the internet, there can be penalties.
Well, that makes sense, given the whole way it works. Of course, in fact, my software does that too. Well, there's not penalties, but it'll stop working if it's not connected to the internet for a while for the same reason, because it's, charged by the month, and we need to know how many of, computers you're using it on.
That's interesting, Jim. So let's go with that for just a second. So if I buy a copy of Panorama from you, how many seats do I have? How long can I be disconnected? Let's say I get on
16 hours.
Really? 16 hours, and you're checking on me?
Of use.
Of use. Okay, so if I'm
And what happens if you use it for more than 16 hours, then it starts nagging you and saying, "Hey, I noticed you haven't been connected to the internet. Could you please do that?" It doesn't do anything other than that. It just will start throwing up a dialogue, and it still works in between the dialogue. You can make the dialogue go away, but a few minutes later it'll come back, and so it's basically like shareware.
so do you? I mean, how do I buy a license from you? And I mean, am I buying a year's license? Am I buying a monthly license? Am I buying a perpetual license?
You can buy you buy months of use, and so you buy them in advance, so you can buy like 1 month's worth or a year's worth or 5 years worth, and it's computer months. So if you have an office and you have 3 people using it and you buy a year's worth, then you'll get 4 months, and then it'll say, okay, you got to pay up again. On the other hand, if you're just one person and you use it, maybe you only use it in February and March to prepare your taxes, and you don't use it any other time, then your year would last like 5 years, because it doesn't debit if you don't use it in a month. It's like, okay, that's free. So that's why it has to connect, because it has to know whether or not you're using it.
Yeah, well, listen, again, it's your choice, and if your customers agree to it, that's great. I like your model though, on the use basis, so that, like you said, if I'm only using it for a month or two a year, or just for one particular project, that then it might last me for a lot of years, as opposed to just a calendar year.
Yeah, I kind of like thought about what I would want as a customer and implemented that. So I kind of wish I could buy some other software that way, because usually subscriptions are just a clock and it runs out whether you use it or not, right? And you're like, oh, it's ticking, time's ticking, but Panorama doesn't do that. And the flip side is, in businesses, maybe you could have a rush and say, okay, most of the time there's just 2 employees that use it, but now we've got some big project, and for a month or two we need 10 people to use it, and it figures that out automatically. They don't have to buy more licenses. All they have to do is install the software and log on all these computers, and it'll automatically be notice, oh, there's more people using it this month. So ProView will get a little more money, and then when the project's over, they just stop. They don't even have to log off or anything. They just stop using it, and Panorama's servers is like, oh, okay, they're not using it anymore, so we'll drop back to the lower number. So I think it's really it was a lot of work to implement all this. Took months of work, but on the other hand, it was a one-time investment that I did, back around 2016, and I think it's a lot of customers really like it. Some people don't understand it, so it is something that you have to explain. And some people just hear, oh, it's not lifetime, so we hate you. But I think people that understand it, we've gotten very positive feedback about it. But the point is, I think HP is charging you, for your use, and you use it more. I think they're charging you more. So obviously, somehow they've got to know whether that's happening or not in order to do that, right? So of course it has to, now, like in my case, the only information that's getting sent is the program was launched. That's it. So there's no data. We have no information about what you're doing with the program, or or anything like that. Who knows what HP? I mean, God, yeah, I certainly hope it's not sending, images of what's being printed or scanned. That would be horrible. But the devil's in the details, right? I mean, nowadays there's TVs that apparently know what you're watching, and report that back, even if you're not watching through their software. They apparently do screen, AI or whatever, and figure out what it is. So
I want to welcome Jeff Gamet, who has joined us a little bit late, but better late than never, Jeff. Good to see you as always.
It's great to be here. And I was thinking fashionably late.
Fashionably late. I like that. So fashionably late means, okay, that works. That works. I'm going to let you pay attention to the article we're talking about, and then we'll get to you because I know Brian, our resident economist, has done some calculations. Brian, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I was looking, this is besides the information that's being shared between you and HP, because it does talk about, what type of, if it's PDF, a JPEG being printed, peripherals that are used, and all this. It says there that HP may transfer information about you to advertising partners. So, I mean, there's some other data being transferred, but I was thinking just on the cost and the break-even cost of using it. I was doing some calculations, and they're $6.99 a month plan. I looked up the model of the printer that they're offering for this, and the printer itself is about $80. And so if you're spending, $80 to buy it, and you were doing this subscription model for $7 a month, it would take you a little less than a year for your break even, minus the cost of ink. But if you were otherwise you could, get your own ink from other sources and things of that nature, I guess. I was thinking, I've been using the same printer for a long time. I have a Canon, like a laser printer, just a black and white laser printer from Canon. Cost me about $100. Probably got it about 5 or 6 years ago. And I think I brought down the cost. I was just breaking it down to like $1 or something a month right now. And it's, knock on wood, still working fine, no problem. And the original toner that it came with, it's still the same toner because I don't do a lot of printing. And so I just thought that was kind of interesting, just the breakdown of, at what point do you break even?
No, definitely. And those are the kind of things you need to think about outside of the privacy aspects.
Mm-hmm.
I do, though, want to see Marty break down, or I don't know, explode or something if I say the word ink.
Well, Chuck, you brought up a good point. They used to make their money off of selling printers. Then they started making their money off of selling ink. And then they started making their ink proprietary. So only certain cartridges would run in certain machines, locking you into their ink. But HP smart software that comes with the HP that's sitting behind me that you can't see, it's connected to the internet. And it's asking me whenever I'm trying to use aspects of this printer, like scanning and stuff, to make sure that I'm connected to the internet. So I think they're already getting that information in ways. Brian has done a better breakdown from the article of it, and also a financial breakdown from the article of it. But, so first the printer, now the ink, now it's information that the printer provides is what's being sold as a commodity.
HP, I mean, I had an HP. It was a laser jet something, and that thing was like a tank. It would not die. It just, I finally, because
but that was like in the 80s, right?
Probably so, Jim. But it was
Those
a laser.
days are long gone.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden we have this, and I mean it's really too bad to see that HP is stooping to something like this, and that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm not bothered. Maybe you guys are. I'm not bothered by the idea of me running a printer any more than I was bothered by the fact that we used to rent a copier for the office. I mean, because that it was economically reasonable as opposed to paying several $1,000s. But at the same time, now I have to wonder what might have been going on behind the scenes. Let's see. The very fashionable Mr. Jeff Gamet has been holding his tongue. So, Jeff, keeping in mind that this is a family show, what are you thinking about this?
Since it's a family show, I have no thoughts.
What?
No. All right. So putting on the family filter. HP is finally saying the quiet part out loud. They have been commoditizing us through their printer products for a long time. And it's just been getting progressively worse. And now they're at the point where they're just saying, okay, this is what we're doing. And there you go. That's it. The data that they collect through their printers, this is not new. Openly telling us that they are now going to commoditize that. They're going to sell that data. That's the part that's really new here, and presenting it as just part of the base business model for their customers. That's a new part for all of this. HP's been doing the thing where you can only use their cartridges and their print heads for quite a while. And their printers need an internet connection so they can phone home, verify that the ink and print head are genuine HP, not refurbished, not some other company. And if they're reporting back that no, in fact, this is not an authorized part, then HP can shut down your printer, and that's in the terms of service. So. I'm sure there are people that become flummoxed when they realize that their printer just suddenly stops working because they've been refilling cartridges or buying aftermarket, and their printer just stops. The whole idea of actually, in essence, leasing your printer and paying a monthly subscription to be able to use your printer, have a quota or a cap on how much you can print. This is something that I'm very used to seeing, but not for consumers. And to me, it doesn't make sense for a consumer printer product. And actually, even for a lot of office printers, it doesn't make sense because companies aren't printing the in the volumes that fall within the restrictions. However, if you're in a large business, if you're in a printing company, and keep in mind, I do have a background in printing and publishing. So working with professional devices where you have a lease, you have a monthly page count that you're paying for, or a cap with penalty prices above a certain amount. This is not new stuff. I've been seeing this for a long time. At the consumer level, no. And I don't like what they're doing here. And I feel like this is monetizing customers in an inappropriate way. And as someone who historically has owned HP printers and has been very, very pleased with them, I've always been a laser printer person. I'm done. I'm out. I will never buy another HP printer again. And that's it. So the printer that I have at the moment is not something I want. It's a Canon inkjet that I bought during the pandemic because I needed to replace my ancient HP color laserjet 630, and I bought it when printers were impossible to get. So I have this little thing. I'm not going to put ink in it. It's just sitting here waiting for me to give it away. And what I replace it with, I am 99% sure it will just be a black and white Brother laser printer. And I have a feeling I am not the only person that will stop buying HP printers because of them finally admitting this is what we're doing. And by the way, it's just the business model.
When this article got posted to the MacVoices Slack, it probably was one of the most commented articles on by the panel and others in a long time. That and interestingly, I think the universal choice for a lot of us, me included, because there's one sitting back here behind me, is a brother. That so far it just does what it does. It doesn't require a connection to the internet. It's a laser, and I'm happy with it. Erico, I want your comment. Then I want to come back to one of Jeff's points. But you bring up something about the package deal or a package deal.
Yeah, well, it used to be if you leased a printer, you got repairs, toner, sometimes you even got paper. The idea was they would keep the printer functioning and usable for the duration of the lease. They were selling you printer functionality. And you did the lease because either it was the only option or because that made sure the printer continued to work. And the only additional cost might be if you printed more than you expected, you might have to pay some extra. This deal doesn't include most of the usage-related repairs that you're likely to get. I mean, it just is a bad deal all over the place. And the fact that they want to charge you more than the printer's worth to get out of the contract, it just sort of illustrates how bad a deal it is. And unfortunately, the people most likely to get sucked into the deal are people that aren't likely to be able to actually afford the monthly cost, much less the cost to get out of it. We talk sometimes about, government officials going after Apple for things that they don't know anything about. This is a situation where somebody should step in and say, from a consumer standpoint, this is just not good.
Well, Eric, you were the one that brought up, though, early on that, part of the agreement that you sign is that then they can sell your data as well.
Yeah.
But if I remember the article correctly, it's not saying what data they're selling. And so I would like to assume that it's only the fact that I'm part of this contract and all, and that I printed maybe, 500 sheets at tax time, and as opposed to potentially intercepting any of the information that is in the documents that I'm printing.
Yeah, but they don't have to even do that. All they have to do is say, you are somebody susceptible to this deal. So everyone who wants to sell you on service contracts for other items, service contracts for coverage of other appliances in the house, new roof, repairs, sealants on your car, whatever else. This just ties you in as somebody who might go for something like that, and we'll just add you into all those lists, and the number of calls you're likely to get after signing up for something just shoots through the roof. You just get added onto the list as somebody who might be willing to pay.
Interesting point. Jeff, I want to circle back and sort of cross what you and Marty said. I'm not as bothered by the idea that I could rent a printer. It's the concern I have over security, over it having to be connected to the internet so it can monitor, and that's why I keep coming back to this. And then before you got here, Jim was explaining to us how his software, has to phone home every so often to check in. But this idea that this has to be connected to the internet all the time, or I'm potentially penalized, is the one that is bothering me. If I've rented it for $39 a month or whatever I'd be paying for it for a month, why does it need to know that, as long as it's within the month that I've paid? And if it's March 1st and my check is cleared, then why does it need to know what I'm doing during the month of March?
That's actually a really good question, and the sort of question that the average consumer wouldn't think to ask, nor would it even occur to them that it's something they should be considering. when you do a printer lease as part of a business, your print quotas, there's a minimum number of pages and a maximum number of pages typically that you can print in a month. So if you don't use your printer enough, you end up paying a penalty fee for not printing enough. And so in most office situations where this is a business model that makes sense, or if you're in like a printing company, you take stuff down to your local FedEx, Kinko's to print. Those are places that are going to hit those minimums anyhow. And they've negotiated what their caps are, and so they've got it all figured out. The printer needs to be telling HP how much you are printing and how often, so that they can gauge that that you're falling within the lease agreements for this printer. Because let's be honest, you are now leasing a printer, and so that's something they need to keep track of. All the other data that goes along with that, I have no idea if they're actually intercepting what's going on to the page, but I'm certain they are going to be collecting how much you print, how often you print, what times a day you print, what days of the week you print. All of this data is really valuable. They can glean a lot about you and your activities based on when and how much you're printing. And are you printing in color? Are you printing in black and white? Whatever. All of that stuff. It's crazy how much people that know how to really interpret this data can figure out about someone. So yeah, that in your case, you brought up taxes earlier. They know when you're filing your taxes. If you're using the printer as part of that process, every year at the same time, you suddenly dump 50 pages out of that printer, and it's all on April 13th. You're doing your taxes.
You brought up something I hadn't thought about, that because I would think I'd be more concerned about going over. If I'm allowed to print 500 pages a month, and after that I have to pay so much more per page, fine. Never even considered the fact until you said what you just did and Marty said what he did about ink, that they want to make sure that I'm using up enough ink that I have to keep on buying ink because somebody else's ink won't work in it. So that's one more part of the revenue stream that they get.
Now, I haven't looked through the details of the lease agreement for this. I would be shocked if minimum print quotas are not part of this. They just have to be. That's how these leases work.
Interesting. I don't want to waste, none of this is wasted. It's all good information. But Marty, you said there have been a number of comments on Reddit. Are they as questioning and as concerned as we are?
Yeah, I follow Reddit. It's the bubblegum I chew every day. And they're, so if you want sort of the street corner view of the world, go on Reddit. And there was a long post on this, and then lots of comments about what printers they're using instead, how they'll never use HP again. The zeitgeist on this is pretty bad. And it's unfortunate for companies. They don't realize when they make these kind of decisions and there's an opportunity to upset one customer, that customer is going to tell probably 26 other people on the average not to buy an HP printer. It's just a bad business model, or it must be a good enough business model, but at the risk of losing customers and as the risk of people's reactions going public about it.
It's interesting that they've made this decision to use this model, and like you said, somewhere somebody's done the math on it and figures that they can handle the blowback, and it'll end up being positive for the bottom line. So,
they probably can handle the blowback. And if you look at what's happened in the software industry with the transition from perpetual licensing to subscription licensing, do you remember everyone remembers the big thing, which is when Adobe switched Creative Cloud to subscription, and everyone flipped out, and they're all saying, "Well, that's it. Adobe's done. Everyone's going to switch to other products. Adobe's going to go out of business." No, they make more money than they ever have, and it's because in that case they made the right business move. They had to sit through the blowback, wait for all of that to subside, and even as they were sitting in that blowback, their revenue was going up, and it made sense because it was a business move to cater to business clients. The difference that I'm seeing here is that this is a business move catering to what appears to be consumer clients. But even as I'm saying that, I'm still thinking this is a blowback that ultimately will be a nothing burger for HP, because they'll still be able to sell printers, and they'll still just keep going on and doing their thing. And most people outside of our tech community bubble, they're not going to know. They'll just be like, wait, I can just pay whatever it is a month, and I just have the printer, and I don't have to shell out all the money up front, and they send me ink, sign me up. And then later on, they're pissed off, and it won't matter.
If
Yeah,
they ever
except
figure it out.
printers are really cheap.
Right. But
I mean-
HP's been pushing the subscribe to our ink thing for quite a while. And okay, Jim, I have a question that maybe you and I can figure out. Is HP doing this because subscribe to ink refills isn't working, or because it's working so well that they think they can expand that to subscribe to the printer?
I have no clue. I'm completely.
No, but you got a good point, Jeff. Hey, we want to welcome Dave Ginsburg, who is double fashionably late, but he's here. Dave, it's
Just slightly flashed me late, but
glad you made it.
thanks for having me. Yeah, I just was running a little late today, and I started listening to the topic, and I figured I'd come jump in and give my insights on this, because I do have some enterprise experience with printing, that's for sure.
Go for it.
You're talking about the payment for ink and all that stuff. I experienced that with copier printers. That's a pretty common thing in the enterprise. I manage Xerox copiers, and they charge on a per page limit, as well as well as the consumables. They kind of package that in together as one thing. So I think HP does the same thing, and HP tries to sell that into the enterprise as well with their color laserjet printers, and even their black and whites for that matter. But it's something of a big business for them. And we look at some of the more consumable models. I mean, I buy office jet printers, and those can be expensive. Even the office jet, the latest model, I think it's the 9125 they just released, and HP changes their printers as much as I change clothes every day. It seems like it's so crazy how they change their models all the time. I can't even keep up with some of the things that I purchase for work. So, and those are the types of printers that they want to have, consumables that they potentially could sell as, as a subscription per se. Even the ones with the ink tanks, Epson was very pushing their big ink tank product, and when they're offering the printer for a little, the printer is a little more expensive. That's going to be about $300 or $400, but then they would offer you just to buy these tanks, and those tanks could last up to 2 years, which I found to be crazy. So where do you look at it as far as where this subscription model could even work? I mean, in the case of the consumer end of things, because there's the give and take on the cost of the ink as well as the cost of the printer. HP will be selling printers that are much less in price. You look at some of those design jet and inkjet printers, and some printers are like $80, $90, $110, whatever, and they don't care about it because where they get you is on the ink. But then those printers fail after time because people start to realize, I only spent $120 or $150 for this printer. Why do I need to spend $150 for ink when I just put this in a landfill and then buy another one? So you worry about that part of it too, the eco friendly kind of things when it comes to printers too. So, but go back to copiers. Copiers are a big business in the enterprise, and they they could be rated at printing up to 100,000 copies in a month, depending on the company. But printing is kind of just taking a tailspin. There's not a lot of companies are not printing as much as they used to because everything is with PDFs and electronic, and so this was interesting to see why HP is all of a sudden going down this road. From what I read when I read this.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.